Welcome back. As typhoon-strength turmoil engulfed the White House, President Trump's nominee for the Supreme Court endured 4 often turbulent days of Senate confirmation hearings. By most accounts, Judge Brett Kavanaugh weathered attempts to derail his nomination, orchestrated by Senate Democrats seeking 2 defectors. On the often incendiary issues of the Second Amendment, reproductive rights, and executive power, Kavanaugh calmly testified he would be guided by precedent. For example, calling Roe versus Wade settled law. Question, was this conservative jurist sufficiently convincing and competent to preserve his narrow margin of support? I'm going to start with Craig Jackson.
Settled law really doesn't mean anything. I think he will be confirmed, but settled law really doesn't mean anything. It means it's settled law, and there's also the issue of stare decisis. But the Supreme Court can overturn precedent, and it's done so, and there are members of the court that would overturn precedent in this particular case. And if Roe versus Wade is not overturned, there's always a possibility of whittling it down to the point that it's nothing. So there is a danger here. And if judges when judges tell you that they do not bring their personal opinions into the courtroom, they're not telling you the truth because they're not computers. Human beings always bring their personal opinions into the courtroom and always make decisions based upon that. And every lawyer knows that, but not all lawyers are willing to admit that, acknowledge that. And every judge knows that too. It's a dirty little secret in the bar.
Rick, I want to ask you, is there an expectation with the base that this potential Supreme Court justice will vote to overturn Roe?
I think that there's a certain expectation of that if that happens to come up. I don't foresee that coming up, but I was very pleased with his handling. He abided by the Ginsburg rule, which is very, very pleasing. I don't think you're going to see the 2 defectors. Okay.
Nyanza, what's your read on this? Is this guy going to be the vote that challenges this landmark decision?
Of course he is. That's why Trump decided to go ahead and make him the person that he's putting up. Let's not be confused here. These hearings are basically a show. He will be confirmed. The Republicans will ensure that. They don't care about women's rights. They're going to ensure that women are taken back 50 years. And the next thing you know, when they say that abortion-inducing drugs, well, that's birth control pills. So for all of you non-married women and some of you married women that are on birth control, how would you like it if all of a sudden you had a daughter that was 17 that may be sexually active, but all of a sudden birth control is now an abortion-inducing drug, and this potential Supreme Court nominee will be that 5th vote to overturn Roe versus Wade, and will be sent back into the dark ages. So if you don't want to elect women and if you don't want to see more women on the court, then do something about it.
As one of our 3 attorneys on the panel, I'm going to go to Bill King, who generally sees things in an even-handed way. What was your read on the hearings?
Well, I'm a little discouraged that the hearings have turned into such theater. I mean, nobody was really trying to figure out, and they were all trying to, make their political partisan points. Look, elections have consequences, and I think Kavanaugh got through these without any terrible thing coming out about him that sort of disqualifies him from being the court. If you don't like his political leanings, then, go win an election. Did you expect that Donald Trump was going to nominate a liberal justice? Now, I'm not saying whether I'm for or against him, but it just seems like to me this is pretty predictable, and I don't think anything happened in the hearings that would derail that.
Okay, switching gears, but staying on the same topic. Calling it his Spartacus moment, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker defied committee rules and released a so-called confidential Kavanaugh email, a document which Booker believes sheds doubt on the nominee's commitment to precedent and potential willingness to overturn rulings like Roe versus Wade. Turns out the memo wasn't confidential, and Kavanaugh claims the content of the email was purely analysis and not an accurate reflection of his personal or judicial position.
I'm saying right now that I'm releasing committee confidential documents. I'm ready to accept the full responsibility for what I have done, the consequences for what I have done, and I stand by the public's right to have access to this document.
Okay, Bob Price, what did you think of the Booker show?
Pretty wimpy movement, I think. To make a big deal out of releasing these type of documents that have already been approved for release, making a show out of nothing, basically. He kind of stepped on his own parade, but the real thing it shows And what we saw throughout this hearing is that the Democrats are willing to say or do anything to move their agenda forward. This guy's running for president. There's no secret about it. He's headed to Iowa today. You know, it's a political stunt. This whole thing was, as Bill said, political theater. The president is going to win this nomination thanks to Harry Reid's whittling away of the
due process.
Filibustering, thank you. You know, on judicial appointments. So this nomination will be confirmed, and the next one will as well, and we will have a 6-3 conservative court.
All due respect, pretty long memory here. Republicans were blocking the process as best they could.
100%. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Let me go to Tony.
Yeah, speaking of short memory, in the other segment, Republicans were maligning an anonymous author. So here is a representative who was elected, who puts his neck on the line, puts his name behind it. It seems that if the standards were basically consistent, Republicans would be lauding him, that despite if they agree with him or not, Cory Booker put his neck on the line, put his name out there, had the Spartacus moment. And I think that's very powerful. On top of it, he released information that showed that the guy who's about to oversee the Supreme Court didn't see it fit to argue against using racial profiling to police airports. That's really disappointing. The other part that really boggles my mind is that you had Republicans like Trump denounce the New York Times vehemently. I haven't heard Trump denounce the Ku Klux Klan that way.
Okay, I got about 40 seconds left. 20 for you and 20 for you. Go.
I think the Republicans marking these documents as confidential was outrageous. And if I would have been on the Senate, I would have released every single one of them, regardless of the damn rule. And the Democrats had a great opportunity to really score points here. And frankly, Booker screwed it up by, as Bob said, releasing some documents that had already been approved. What the Democrats should have done, got together, released the entire batch, because none of them were confidential, none of them were national security. They were all marked for political reasons.
Final word, Craig.
And one of the documents released shows that the nominee is a believer in a theory called the unitary executive, which gives the president the authority to do anything he wants to when it comes down to the executive branch. Now, with regard to all these issues that are going to come before the Supreme Court, and I think they will, you have to watch what he does with that. He should recuse.
We will watch. Up next, a local state rep enters a county lockup for an extended stay. We shall discuss whether those who break the law should later get to make the law. Stay with us.